Welcome to Cook Like an Auntie, where we prove that you don't have to be an auntie to make delicious Indian food.
The ingredients to make rotis are extremely simple. It's just half a cup of whole wheat flour and some warm water. Optionally, you can also use salt and a little bit of vegetable oil. Here are the materials you'll need to make rotis. I recommend having a wooden cutting board. You could roll out the rotis on a granite, quartz, or butcher block countertop if you want, but I prefer using a cutting board because it keeps your countertop clean. You'll also need a rolling pin. There are a lot of different styles of rolling pins. I prefer using one that is as wide as possible because that prevents you from needing to roll the roti separately on the right and left sides. Instead, you can just roll once in the middle and it'll roll the entire roti. You'll also want a flat pan that's large enough to hold a roti, so probably about 8 to 12 inches in diameter. I'd also recommend that it's nonstick. I'd recommend having a roti jolly. You could cook the roti just on an open flame or directly on an electric stove, but a roti jolly will make cooking a little bit easier for you. If you want soft rotis, it's helpful to have a cotton cloth and a container with a lid so you can store the rotis after you've cooked them. If you need to get one of these items, I have links in the description below.
Put half a cup of atta, which is whole wheat flour, in a mixing bowl. At this point, some aunties add salt to the atta. My mother-in-law is the person who taught me the basics of making rotis, and she doesn't add salt at this point, so I don't either. But if your favorite auntie adds salt, go ahead. If you ask 10 aunties how to make rotis, you'll get 15 different answers because all 10 aunties will say something different and at least 5 uncles will chime in also. So do whatever works for you because there's no one way to make rotis. Now you'll want to add in a little bit of water to the flour at a time. Mix the water and flour together until the water is completely incorporated. Then add a bit more water at a time and repeat this process until you're able to form a ball with the dough. One tip for making soft rotis is to use warm water. The water I incorporated was 110 degrees Fahrenheit or 43 degrees Celsius. The water doesn't need to be boiling, it just needs to be a little bit above room temperature. The process of mixing water into the flour starts out very slowly. But then after 2 or 3 minutes, it will quickly form a ball of dough. This is what the dough looks like about 75% of the way through this process. You can see that it's starting to form a ball, but there's still a lot of other pieces of flour that still need to be incorporated. Here's what the dough looks like when it's nearly ready. If the dough looks dry, add in just a little bit more water at a time. If the dough starts coming up out of the ball of dough like little peaks, that means you've added too much water and you should add in a little bit more flour back into the ball of dough. You want to add in just enough water so that there are no cracks in the ball of dough that you're making. If there are cracks, you won't get round rotis. At this point, some aunties add oil to the ball of dough and let the dough rest for 10 minutes. My mother-in-law doesn't do that, so I don't either. But if your favorite auntie adds oil and lets the dough rest, feel free to do so. If you found this video helpful so far, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment letting me know what recipe you'd like covered in a future video. You've probably been wondering what that plate of flour above my cutting board is for. This is where it comes in handy. Take a little flour from that plate and put it on the cutting board and spread that flour out a little bit. This will help keep the dough from sticking to the cutting board. Then take the ball of dough and roll it into a log. This next technique is something I learned from watching my wife's Masi, which is her aunt, make rotis. I try to use only my right hand for the dough as much as possible so my left hand stays clean. Put your hand in the flour so that flour sticks to the side of your hand. Then Cut a little piece off of the log and then roll that piece into a ball. Make sure you don't have any cracks in the ball. If you have cracks, you won't get round rotis. Then set the ball aside in the mixing bowl and repeat this step until the entire log of dough is used up. I'm going to speed up the video so you can see how the rest of the dough is handled, and then I'll be back with you in a second. If you want to skip, feel free to just head to the next chapter in the YouTube timeline. Okay, now let's talk about how to roll out round rotis with your rolling pin. When you're using your rolling pin, you should always roll in a straight up-down motion using even pressure as you go away from you and back toward you. Here's a chart that you might find helpful.
First, you'll start out with that small ball of roti dough. As you apply even pressure straight up and down with the rolling pin, it'll turn into the oval shown in step 2. Then you'll rotate 90 degrees to get the shape in step 3. When you roll again, straight up and down, you'll end up with the rounded square in step 4. Then you'll rotate the dough 45 degrees and get the diamond in step 5. Once again, rolling straight up and down with even pressure, you'll get the wide oval in step 6. Then you'll rotate 90 degrees to get the oval in step 7. After rolling with even pressure straight up and down, you'll get a larger circle in step 8. The roti may still be too thick, so you can continue back to whichever step you think the dough resembles. For example, if you think the dough is a circle, you can go back to step 1 and then roll again until you get to step 2, 3, 4, so on back to 8. But you might also think that your roti in step 8 looks a little bit more like the square in step 4, so for example, you could go to step 4, then back to 5, 6, 7, and 8 until you get your roti at the thinness you want.
Now let's see how that works on an actual ball of roti dough. Start by putting a little bit of flour on your cutting board and spreading it out. Then take one of the balls of roti dough, put it into a thick disc, and cover it with flour. Now, using even pressure and an up-down motion, roll it out from step 1 to step 2. You'll get an oval. Now the turn from step 2 to step 3 happens quickly. I rotate 90 degrees, and then I'm also flipping the dough over because there's more flour on the back of the dough, so that'll help the rolling pin not stick to the dough. Now we're going from step 4 to step 5. This is the rotation from step 6 to step 7. I'm adding more flour to the dough so it doesn't stick to the cutting board or the rolling pin. Now we're at step 8, going to 1 and then 2 again. That's 2 to 3. That's 4 to 5. Here's 6 to 7. And now we're going 7 to 8. Now I think that shape looks like the diamond from step 5, so I'm going back to step 5. Here's 5 to 6. 6 to 7. And now we'll do 7 to 8. And now just one final retouch to even it out into a circle. And that's the round roti. I'm quickly just gonna shake off extra flour before I put it in the pan for cooking. Feel free to print out this diagram. When you see the dough in a certain shape, you'll know what the next step is and how to continue on there until you get a thin, round roti.
For cooking the roti, heat a flat pan over medium heat. Add the roti and watch for it to dry a little bit as it cooks. When you see some bubbles forming, it'll be time to flip the roti over. Now wait for the roti to dry even more as it cooks. Once you start to see the roti puffing up, it'll be time to move it to the jolly and cook it over an open flame. As the roti is over the open flame, it will puff up completely. After it's had about 5 to 10 seconds to cook, puffed up on one side, then flip it over on the other side. I like to flip it over the pan just so flour doesn't get on the open stove. Then let the roti cook for another 5 to 10 seconds or until completely puffed up on the other side. Store the rotis in a cotton cloth in a covered container until they're ready to be eaten. This will keep them soft and warm. And that's how to make soft, round rotis like an auntie. Here, I'm serving it with bindi masala, dal, and a little bit of yogurt. To recap the tips to make soft rotis, use warm water when making the dough. Make sure the dough doesn't have any cracks when you form the balls. Store in a covered container in a cotton cloth until serving. And the tips for making round rotis? Again, the dough shouldn't have any cracks. Use more water if you need to remove the cracks. Use even pressure when rolling the rotis. And follow the shape patterns. Circle to oval to square, diamond, oval, circle, and then repeat again until you get a nice thin roti. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so now. I'm making an excellent dal makhni recipe for next week that you won't want to miss. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.